It's a me, Mario! Yes, we can all do that. Thanks, Chris. Anyway, yes, welcome to my review. And thanks for clicking on my face. I know you're regretting it. Some people tap out after like 11 seconds, and I totally get that. I'm weird. But for those who don't, I think it's a rewarding experience. I'm John Stark from MacMovieGuy.com. I'm a blind film critic. We're going to talk about audio description, so get excited and click that subscribe button so you can hear me talk about audio description over and over and over again for the rest of your life. This is a Super Mario Brothers movie, and it's on Peacock with audio description. Isn't that exciting? The audio description is done by Leilani Jones-Wilmore. I've heard her do some things. She doesn't do as much as I would like her to do, to be totally honest. I wish she would do more. But she's done enough that I'm familiar with the name, and I think she was a nice choice for this film. I think with a film like Super Mario Brothers, when you're trying to pick a narrator, and this is Illumination, and you're aiming it at kids, you don't want to go with a voice that seems too adult. But you also don't want to go with a voice that seems too childish, because it's quite likely that a lot of people who are a lot older are sitting in the audience because they grew up with Mario. Mario debuted in the 80s. So I grew up on Mario. And I feel like parents would take their kids to go see the Super Mario Brothers movie. They'd see somebody like me, with my big hairy face, and I'm wearing a Super Mario Brothers t-shirt, by the way. I totally planned this whole thing. I have my Mario shirt on. And I'd be sitting there looking like a nerd, and people would be like, who's that grown man by himself? And please keep my children away from him. And I'm like, that's not fair, okay? I played this game on NES. This is mine. This is not your kids. Your kids just woke up 5 minutes ago. Like, they don't own Mario yet. I'm sorry. This is, I did not remember passing it down to them in my will for them to be able to own Mario. So it's weird because this film definitely feels like it's playing to kids, and it feels like an Illumination film, which is probably the worst thing that it's got going for it. But at the same time, it really goes after the nostalgia. So I'm so conflicted on this film. I understand why it made like $500 million at the box office, because yeah, it is a lot of fan service, but it also oddly feels like fan service coming from people who weren't Mario fans and did a lot of catching up. And like, they had an idea for a script, but they weren't really sure what to do with it. So they came up with this idea. They didn't want to follow the last time a Mario film hit theaters. It's like a legendary bomb. Like, we bring it up and people go, oh my God, which is kind of unfair because people always say Super Mario Brothers, but they never say Double Dragon. Like, there were other video game movies at the time that did not do well at the box office. So, yeah, I guess Mario was the bigger franchise in that scenario, but we had a problem with video game movies in the early 90s. Street Fighter. Arguably, Mortal Kombat was the only one that actually made sense, but it was still PG-13 and should have been R. So, anyway. Yes. Mario. Mario had a lot of bad press, didn't it? Chris Pratt. I like Chris Pratt. I'm going to put that out there right away so that people don't think this is Chris Pratt bashing. I loved him. I love Everwood. I did not think while watching him on Everwood he would blow up, but I actually think he's entertaining, and he entertains me. I have no idea what he's doing here. I cannot defend this voice performance. I felt like he's trying to pitch his voice higher. It comes across a little bit like Mark Wahlberg. There were plenty of times where he's trying to talk his voice up here and also do kind of like an Italian accent, and it just kind of starts coming into like a Mark Wahlberg. I was like, what is he doing to his voice? Obviously, that was the worst Mark Wahlberg impression in the world, but if you really listen to his voice in this film, he should have just done himself. They do the gag with the overly Italian voice, which is what I think people heard originally, and they were like, oh God, is this going to be the whole film? And, you know, it's not. I mean, they don't speak like that the whole time. They do that sort of like in a way to sort of sell the Italian ish of their plumber business or whatever. But then he has this kind of normal voice, but it's still not his normal voice. He's still not Chris Pratt. So he's still doing this weird, high-pitched Mark Wahlberg thing. It's so distracting. I feel like Charlie Day didn't have the same kind of direction with Luigi. Like, I can hear Charlie Day a lot more in Luigi than I can Chris Pratt in Mario. Listen, Chris, play to your strengths. Ignore the haters and just give your vocal performance. The team chose you. You're not a voice actor. You're not somebody who comes up with voices. They didn't, you know, if they wanted somebody who could do a bunch of voice work, they would hire somebody who could change their voice and had a bunch of different voices. It's not something that Chris is known for. So when he's trying to do that, it just sounds so bizarre. And I'm like, what is he doing? It's distracting because he's the lead of the film. So I was very distracted by his voice, but not because I thought it was like too Italian or whatever. It was because he's pitching it too high and he comes across as Mark Wahlberg. Just fucking hire Mark Wahlberg then. Just put him in the film if that's what you want. Don't go out and be like, Chris Pratt, we need you to sound like Mark Wahlberg for the whole film. Just hire Mark Wahlberg. Just bring him in. Nobody cares. It's voice work. Anyway, yeah, so I didn't think it was a great vocal performance. Luckily, the rest of the cast is on point. Anya Taylor-Joy really is an interchangeable Peach. Anybody could have played that role, but I thought she did a good job. She's also not somebody who's really known for voice work, but I thought she did a really nice job with Peach. Charlie Day is obviously somebody who naturally understands why he's funny and how to make things funny and gets the joke. And he just naturally slides into Luigi, and nobody asked him to change anything about who he is in any sort of dramatic way. But even with that, I feel like Charlie Day has a stronger base in being able to manipulate his voice without making it sound weird. So I think he did a good job. We also have Jack Black, who's gotten a lot of praise for Bowser. He's a great Bowser. There are the times when Bowser is singing and sitting down and playing the piano. That's when you can tell somebody really wanted Jack Black, because they were like, we need somebody who's funny and can sing. And that's Jack Black. So I kind of miss Jack Black being in a more prominent role. And I think it's crazy with all the stuff that we have, with all the streaming and everything, how we don't see more of him. I mean, there's content all over the place. And this film made me miss Jack Black. I was like, what was the last thing I saw him in? Where's he been? What's he been up to? I feel like he doesn't work as much, you know, like, whereas with Seth Rogen and Donkey Kong, I'm like, oh God, this guy, you know, it's just, I'm watching him in Platonic. He just did Pam and Tommy, you know, it's just, I feel like with Seth Rogen, he's consistently the Fablemans, you know, I mean, he's all over the place. So, but with Jack Black, I'm like, what was the last thing I saw him in? Damn. It's been a minute. Where'd he go? Why is he not working as much as Seth Rogen? He should be working at least as much as Seth Rogen. So, yes, great voice work from two people who understand how to do voice work. Because this is also not their first vocal performances in animated films. You know, Seth has Mantis in the Kung Fu Panda films and Bob in Monsters vs. Aliens. So he's in Sausage Party. So I can't forget Sausage Party. So he's done plenty of this kind of thing before, and he kind of makes for a great Donkey Kong. I'm not gonna lie, he kind of makes for a great Donkey Kong. So really the only problem that I had was Pratt, who I just wish had just been himself. They do the thing where they flip into the Italian voice and it's fine and it works in the moment in which they use it. He should have just been able to flip out and down to his normal voice. I don't know why he felt like he needed to pitch it higher. I really don't. I've got no explanation for that, but it's my biggest criticism of the film, I think, is Chris Pratt's voice. but for very different reasons than what everybody else was talking about. They're like, it sounds too Italian. I was like, it sounds too Mark Wahlberg to me, who doesn't sound Italian to me. So that's my thought on that. Plot-wise, I don't know. I mean, there are things in this plot that I love. The Luma Lee stuff is hilarious. Luma Lee is just a nice, bright, shining star of a standout. Every time Luma Lee has dialogue, steals the show. I really love Toad. Keegan-Michael Key's performance as Toad. I really enjoy Toad as a character. Somewhere around I have a Toad figurine. I don't know where anything is anymore. But I really love Toad. And I think Keegan-Michael Key was the right choice for that. And instead of Keegan feeling like he had to pitch his voice, I think they pitched his voice up. I think they just used like a voice manipulator to pitch his voice into Toad. But I think it made for a really good Toad. And Toad was interesting. And Fred Armisen is Cranky Kong. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. It seems like a solid choice for that vocal performance. So, I will have to acknowledge that I'm nerdish enough that when I heard Kari Payton playing the Penguin King in this film, I was like, he's King Ezekiel. Did they pick him because he's good at playing kings? Because they could have picked anybody, let's be honest. But they picked somebody who's already known for probably his most prominent role is playing the king on The Walking Dead. I kind of wondered if that was like a nod. Probably isn't, but I'm nerdish enough to draw that conclusion. So, yes, that was where I thought, I don't know, it's just, it feels like it feels like they threw everything in because they didn't know if they were going to get a sequel. So we have to travel to different worlds. We have to make sure we get kind of a Mario Kart segment in there. We have to make sure we get a Diddy Kong reference. We have to make sure we get all of these little things that I feel like there are references to Luigi's Mansion. There are references to like every Mario game ever. I'm like, where do we go with a sequel? I almost feel like the sequel now has to be Donkey Kong Country, because if we do a Mario sequel, I don't know what we would do, because we just did it. I feel like they did everything. They just tried to throw everything in the kitchen sink. They were like, I'm worried I'm worried we won't get a sequel, and this will be the one time that we have to put all of the things in. And I just don't know that it made for the best plot. I didn't like necessarily that Mario was being trained. The training sequences of Mario, I was like, this is what he's learning, how to fight in this world. I mean, I get it because he's not from this world, but I feel like it really just there's this thing where we started off with Mario kind of being awful at things, and he has to learn how to be a hero, and I don't know. I mean, I guess sort of, but when we're presented with this guy, in the very first Donkey Kong, there's just a dude, and he's got to climb some ladders, and he's got to stop Donkey Kong from doing his thing. And then we got the Super Mario Brothers game, and he just kind of drops in at the beginning of the game, and he just goes, and he's able to jump based on how good the player is. So if that's what you're playing with, is the idea that the people who played with Mario weren't always good, so he kept falling off of boxes and falling into plants and stuff, sure, but Mario was supposed to be good. We're supposed to be handed somebody good, just like in most other video games. We can get any hero killed in any game, regardless of how badass they are. We could be handed the most badass character and still be bad at the game and get them killed. So I think taking the idea that because players didn't know how to play the video games, and they would suddenly fall off of a cliff, or they would be on one of those moving platforms that drops and Mario would drop. I don't know that we need to play with that idea, because it's more representative of the people who were playing the video game than it is actually of Mario. The thing that we're doing where people are learning how to be heroes, that's kind of what I've heard a lot about the new Ninja Turtles movie, is that they're like in training but like really in training. Not just like how they have been before, but like really unprepared levels of in training. Like they watch YouTube videos. So, um, it's a weird trend to go with, and it was something that I didn't quite love. There are a lot of people who are like, Peach is, she's the badass, she's the strong female lead, and I hate it. I don't know why people are so threatened by strong female leads. It's so bizarre. It's so bizarre that we're sending a message that a princess that can function and save herself in this format, it works. Because of how they wrote the story, her being the one, because Mario's not from this world, it is Peach's world, and he has nobody else really to train him. So who else would train him? Toad? Like, so Peach has to step up. There really isn't another person who could step up unless he landed in Donkey Kong Land. But then, you know, I don't know. He's there to rescue Luigi, not Peach. So it's based on the series of choices that they made. I feel like that is the right Peach for this film. I question whether or not this film wasn't trying to do everything but the kitchen sink. And I think that's probably the film's biggest problem. It has a very interesting score that's very reminiscent of a lot of the video games, if you played them. Listen, if you played every single Mario game, good for you, because they're all over platforms, and I have not even played every single Mario video game, so I'm sure there were references that I didn't even get, because I literally haven't played every game. I have played a lot of Mario games, and I've played Donkey Kong Country and Diddy Kong Racing and stuff from that franchise, but I have not played every single Mario game. Even the one that was on Game Boy that we got with Game Boy, I played that. So yes, I'm very familiar with the concept of Mario, and I feel like they made choices, but I feel like it's the kind of choices Illumination makes where they think something is good enough. They take a property, and it's why I'm terrified of them remaking Shrek, because I don't think it's going to be as good. I don't actually think their Grinch is as good as any other previous iteration of the Grinch. You know, I don't know that they actually surpass anything that they do. They're much more creative when they're given something that has no previous expectation, like a Despicable Me or The Secret Life of Pets. But these couple of times they've been given something that comes off of a franchise and they're expected to illuminate it, it doesn't quite fit into their mold. You know, it's like they feel like they have to do everything, or it just doesn't work. Here, I am somebody who says I'm a fan, so service me, and I appreciate fan service, but it can't be the one thing that feels like that's the sole purpose for this film. It feels like the sole purpose for this film was to just show you this entire world all at once in one film. And I really don't know what a sequel would be, conceptually. I mean, there's a little teaser at the end. I guess it's a spoiler, but it's an egg cracking. It's nothing major. It's just a little egg that cracks at the end. So obviously that's a hint at maybe there will be another Mario. But obviously with $500 million at the box office, somebody's going to try to make another Mario. I'm really hesitant. I think the format for this it was a lot. It was just throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. But the audio description was great. I really felt like it was trying to immerse me in video games that I haven't been able to see or play in years. There is very much a vibe of the video game. I'm not sure that this film is adapted by people who truly love Mario so much as they are familiar with Mario and had to familiarize themselves further with Mario. Kind of like how Brett Ratner had absolutely no idea what the X-Men were and had to play some catch-up before he could direct an X-Men film. doesn't feel like there's a lot of love for these characters in a way. It feels like people are telling them why they love these characters and they're interpreting that and trying to put that on screen, but I don't feel the love coming from the writers and the directors. I feel like they just decided to do their own thing. They have the rights to the characters and they just, here's the film. Yay! It's tough because you can't just adapt one video game. It would feel very choppy because it would feel like you're just getting to the end of a level and then the end of a level and the end of a level. So you want to make sure you have a through plot, a through storyline. However, they didn't dodge that here. It still has that feeling. It still feels like you're going here and doing this thing, and then you're going over here to do this thing, and then you're going over here to do this thing. So it does still feel like you're moving through levels, like in a video game. So they didn't dodge that either. It's still there. It's just in a different form. I think looking back on the live action film, which actually tried somehow to cohesively take all these characters and make a film out of them, really makes me interested in that concept, because I think that that's what could have worked here. And there's a glimpse of that at the beginning. They seem to be trying to do that at the very beginning. But then once they fall into this world, then it just becomes the video game. And I don't know. It's a mixed bag for me. Part of me is just so excited to have it and see it out there and loves the fan service. The other part of me just goes, I cannot believe that this is the best version of this film. You know, I can't believe this is the best thing that we were able to do with Mario. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. So, I appreciate the audio description and the description of the characters and all the different worlds and the little traps. And every time, yes, it's so helped with the fan service and little tubes that they're moving in and out of. And the description of everything from bombs to, all the different Bowsers, the ones with the skeleton Bowser that Luigi faces that reassembles itself. It's just, it's everything. It's delightful in so many different ways, and also at the same time, it feels like it falls short. So I don't think it's a terrible film. I hope you guys enjoy it with your families and your kids. And the fan service in this, I think, is skewing it up for me. But I'm going to give Super Mario Brothers a B. So that's where I'm at. I want more for this movie. Certainly. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And yes, I do have a Mario shirt on. I think it's a Mario Racing shirt, by the way, for those of you who are my blind subscribers. And I don't do audio description. I never tell you guys what I look like or anything like that. But I'd love to point out the fact that I am actually wearing a Mario shirt today. So I planned for this. And so thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I will see you guys in another review. You can visit my website, MacTheMovieGuy.com. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or Threads at MacTheMovieGuy. You can go to the audio description project, adp.acb.org. It'll let you know what has audio description and where you can watch it. And you can go to the adna.org, where you can look up Leilani Jones Wilmore and see what else she's been doing and what else she's been working on. And you can also, I'm trying to do a trend. I've made a video about it. Hashtag describe it to me. Try to get your other YouTubers to talk about audio description, because the more of us that are talking about it, the better. Especially if you just subscribe to any other film YouTubers, share the hashtag with them, describe it to me, and ask them to review a film with the audio description on. And let's see what we can do. I don't know, it's like the Ice Bucket Challenge, but for us, for the blind people, for people who need audio description. There just is not enough of it, and we deserve better. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the other side.